Responsive editing is what ensures that your designs look great across desktop, tablet, and mobile, without having to build 3 separate versions of a page. Let's start with the basics. Inside the editor, on the top toolbar, you'll notice device controls for desktop, tablet, and mobile. You can switch between these views at any time. This gives you a clear picture of how your layout adapts across the breakpoints. Now, the key to how the system works is what we call the waterfall model. Any styling change that you make at the desktop level will flow down automatically to tablet and mobile. If you switch to tablet and adjust a setting, that change will apply to tablet and mobile only. And if you make a change in the mobile view, it applies only there. This approach saves you a lot of time. Instead of manually adjusting everything at every breakpoint, you can focus just on the overrides that matter. Now, when you're making these kinds of changes, pay attention to the coloring of the block settings labels. If the label is green, that means the value is being inherited from a larger viewport. If the label is blue, that means the value has been overridden for the current viewport. And if there's no colored label in a responsive view, that setting isn't responsive. While most settings are responsive, not every control will be. Whenever a setting is overridden in a smaller viewport, so when the label is showing as blue, you'll also see a reset button next to it. Clicking that resets the value back to inheriting from the parent viewport, which is really useful if you want to remove an override and go back to the cascading default. One important detail: responsive values are only set when you've actually clicked one of the device icons at the top to enter that viewport. If you simply resize your browser window manually, you still will be editing whichever viewport you have selected in the toolbar. So always use the device toggles when you want to make true responsive adjustments. Let's take a closer look at this section and see how we've adjusted it to display better on the tablet viewport. In this view, we've centered the heading and buttons for clarity, tightened up the gap between the columns, and set the featured column to display full width, while leaving the supporting columns in 2. By default, all columns will stack into a single column on mobile, but you can override that if needed by going into the row settings and switching the direction to horizontal. That restores the same column setup that you used on desktop. If you'd rather break your layout into multiple rows, you can enable the Flex Wrap option. Once the total width of your columns exceeds 100%, they'll wrap automatically onto the next line. So for this example, we've set the first columns to 50%, which forces the third column to wrap onto a new row. We've also added an arrow icon inside of the full width column at the bottom, but only for tablet. On wider and smaller devices, we've hidden it by setting its display to none. This way, it appears only where it makes the most sense visually. As you can see, the responsive system is flexible enough to create unique layouts per device, without having to rebuild the entire section from scratch. You've probably noticed that there's a fourth icon on the top toolbar next to the devices. This is hover mode. Hover mode empowers you to edit block attributes that take effect only when the element is hovered over. Unlike responsive editing, hover mode doesn't use a cascade system. The value is either set and active, or it isn't. And when it is set, it will override all other viewports. Another difference is that not every block setting supports hover styling. These options are mostly limited to things like colors, effects, and transforms. You'll know which settings are available in the hover mode by looking at the label. Green means the value can be edited in hover mode, and purple means the value is currently set within hover mode. When hover mode is enabled, the editor displays the block as if it's being hovered, but in a frozen state. This makes it easy for you to see your changes and refine the hover effect without needing to constantly move your cursor on and off of the element. And that's where we're going to wrap up the edit modes in this course. In the next course, we're going to be jumping into animations and effects and explore how to bring motion into your designs.